the representative of the Russian Federation.
I would like to greet you as president of today's meeting, Mr. President. We are grateful for it being called on such an important issue as maritime security. We would like to thank today's briefers for providing their information. The challenges and threats at sea are becoming increasingly diverse in nature, some of them including piracy and the linkage between criminals and international terrorism indeed do fall under the remit of the Security Council. The proactive actions taken in line with its central role, including the adoption on the 16th of December 2008 of Resolution 1851 on establishing the contact group on piracy off the coast of Somalia, did broadly curb the phenomenon of piracy in the 21st century. Measures were also taken to strengthen the military and maritime and law enforcement capacity of a number of regional states, and dozens of pirates were detained and prosecuted. The Russian Federation has been actively involved in these efforts, and it provided its naval forces to escort civilian vessels and also participated in work of the relevant regional formats. However, of ongoing serious concern are instances of armed robbery at sea in the Gulf of Guinea. There have been a number of incidents, including Russian seafarers being taken hostage. In order to improve the military preparedness and technological equipment of the coast guards of the country of the region, we have expanded our financial assistance from the annual voluntary contributions of the Russian Federation to the UN Office for Drugs and Crime. As regards terrorism at sea, in pure terms, it is extremely rare. One such high-profile example of terrorist attacks over recent times is the explosion of the Russian gas pipeline Nordstream 1 and 2 in the Baltic Sea in September 2022. This incident became possible, as we all know, in the context of the rabid anti-Russian stance of the previous American administration, headed up by Joe Biden, which undoubtedly created serious risk for international peace and security. Any of our attempts to initiate an independent international investigation of this criminal act or adopt measures through the Security Council were repeatedly blocked by its Western members. Once again, this makes us question the circumstances regarding the preparation and implementation of this terrorist attack. In support of their position, they, as we all recall, referred to their total faith in national investigations being conducted by Germany, Denmark, and Sweden. They expressed upstream their limitless belief that they would be effective and credible. As we know, the effectiveness of the investigations of Denmark and Sweden led to a zero result. The German authorities are still taking their time and are repeatedly refusing to provide substantive information about the investigation either to the Security Council or to the entire international community. This is fueling various speculation and absolutely improbable versions in the international media. However, whatever Berlin says in terms of artificially restraining the publication of the German investigation, the truth will out and the perpetrators will be located and punished. Mr. President, moving to the issue of maritime security, we'd like to underscore that such matters do not come under the remit of the Security Council either. Such matters must be dealt with by the relevant international structures, in particular developing unified approaches to combat organized crime as a whole, including its maritime component, is the purview of the General Assembly and the ECOSOC subsidiary organs, in particular the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice. Currently, there has been a good database with all the decisions of these organs on various aspects of countering transnational crime, and that has been set up. Also, a whole system of specialized organizations has been set up and is running smoothly. This includes Interpol, and the Secretariat, the Secretary General, is here today. The role of these organizations is to increase the effectiveness of international cooperation to respond to such threats. It's hard to overestimate the significance of bilateral cooperation and mutual legal assistance on criminal cases. Without this, it's not possible to tackle transnational crime seriously. It's very important for such a mechanism to function on a clear and predictable basis without politicization and double standards. As we are well aware, today there is a serious problem with this. The requests from relevant Russian authorities in most Western countries are not complied with, even in circumstances when this is clearly stipulated in the provisions of the relevant international treaties or the Security Council resolutions. This is done purely for political reasons. As a result, it is the transnational criminals who win. They enjoy complete impunity. In today's concept note, mention is made of climate change. We'd like to underscore that monitoring this and developing the response measures and adaptation measures also does not come under the remit of the Security Council. Specialized mechanisms have been set up and are running based on the relevant international legal instruments, primarily the UNFCCC of 1992. We deem attempts to use the environment as an excuse for strengthening security measures as unacceptable. We have to note that the topic of climate change is increasingly being taken hostage to different kinds of political speculation and speculative ideas that are neither backed up in theory nor practice. In contrast, the damage...
Do you realize Africa is silent? Do you realize people continue to die and we are silent? We don't talk about anything. Why do we raise our voice like the same thing we do for Gaza? We have a lot of Africans who are raising their voices for Gaza, and they are leaving the African country Sudan. They don't say anything about it.
Carry out unfair competition through non-economic means. Having stable and predictable maritime logistics is important for all countries, and for small island states and coastal developing states, this, in fact, is a matter of their very existence. Unfortunately, we're increasingly observing actions designed to create artificial barriers and threats in these relations. Unilateral, rather coercive measures are a priori unlawful, and using them contravenes international law. This fact does not prevent states who use UCMs to refer to attempts to circumvent these, and I reiterate, these absolutely illegal measures, to pin a label that a vessel belongs to a so-called shadow fleet. I'd like to underscore that this term has no legal backup. It is not transparent and is not international. In other words, it's nothing but arbitrariness, once again, from Western countries. They hide behind this to use any means to cling on to their domination in the world. In practice, such actions purely serve to complicate logistics and increase the costs of goods for consumers. All of this ultimately means that developing countries suffer the most. Mr. President, when we consider the issue of maritime security, we cannot fail to mention the actions of individual states to whip up tensions in regions often located thousands of nautical miles from their own borders. They are presented as naval operations to support freedom of navigation. However, in practice, we're talking about the same old provocations. Of particular danger are the cases of the infringement and encroachment by Western states of fundamental maritime freedoms, including freedom of maritime navigation and the rights to peaceful and transit passage. At the meeting of the Greek presidency in the Security Council in May, we recounted the egregious actions of the Estonian patrol vessel trying to take by force the tanker that was navigating in international waters. There were 2 attempts to seize the vessel from a helicopter, and then a naval motorboat of the Estonian Navy actually tried to ram the tanker. This comes under the same topic I mentioned today, that is not international legal in nature whatsoever, namely the so-called excuse to combat the shadow fleet. UNCLOS of 1982 contains an exhaustive list of situations where stopping a vessel is authorized that's flying under another flag, authorized for inspection. This list, neither that list nor the convention will have any mention of this so-called shadow fleet. The inviolability of maritime freedom and also the principle of the sole jurisdiction of a flag state regarding the vessel in international waters is key for stable and predictable functioning of the international maritime trade system. In this regard, the actions of Estonia and its European support group have created a dangerous precedent. If other states follow this example, then the global supply chain will be broken and maritime trade will cease. Using naval forces and resources of NATO countries for such illegal actions is a direct path to military escalation and will create new risks for maritime security. In conclusion, Mr. President, I'd like to touch on what was mentioned in the concept note, namely the initiative to set up an international body for maritime security. In our opinion, such efforts undertaken at the national level and also through the relevant regional and universal organizations are fully effective and sufficient. We would urge everyone to focus on improving them where necessary and not to complicate the context for their implementation inter alia through unlawful actions that I've already mentioned. Thank you.
This is the journey to one Africa.